Well, hello, everybody. Steve Martin back here again with the podcast Relationships Suck, or maybe it's just you, a failure's guide to successful relationships with me, Steve Martin. Now, we are in episode 2, which means we're going on to the next chapter of the book, which is the official chapter 1, which is disclaimer. Now, just so you know, I said in episode 1, I want to be completely transparent and completely authentic. I am recording this episode number 2 basically 5 minutes after I recorded episode number 1. I just simply changed my shirt so that something visually different for the people watching on YouTube and Instagram and whatnot. I'm still, as you can see, in the same hotel room. It is the same sunny day in Thailand, Phuket, Thailand. It is beautiful here. And without any further ado, let's get into the rest of the book, or the next chapter of the book, chapter 1, which is the disclaimer. Okay, so who I am and what I'm not. Okay, I want to be extremely clear with this first point about what I am not. So I'm going to put it in all caps and on its own line in extra large font for emphasis. I am not a doctor. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist of any kind. I hope that's clear enough. So with that said, know that the majority of what you will read in this book are simply my opinions based on my experiences. Anything that is not my opinion will be clearly indicated with credit given to the original author or of the writing or thought. I will offer advice, and if you take it and it doesn't work out, you can't blame me. See the chapter that talks about there being no guarantees in life. You have to understand that while you're reading my words, you're not hearing my voice. Except for now, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube and whatever. So I'm going to kind of get this covered. You're not hearing my tone and delivery unless you purchase the audiobook version or watching on YouTube. So it could be very easy to misinterpret what I write. I'll do my best to combat that by being crystal clear and using a lot of words. Now let's talk about who I am and what I am. The following is a very quick synopsis of my relationship history. I like to think I'm a regular guy who's just had a lot of experience with relationships. I come from a family of 10. I have 4 brothers, 3 sisters, and the standard 2 parents. My extended family of aunts, uncles, and cousins is also quite large, numbering 46, and they are a very colorful group of people. I had my first child at the age of 20. The relationship with that child's mother didn't last 9 months past her birth. I immediately went from that relationship to the next. In fact, there was actually a little bit of overlap. The next relationship would be with the woman I would eventually marry at the age of 22. That marriage lasted 18 years and produced 5 more wonderful children. Sadly, in that 18-year marriage, there were other relationships, and that, of course, was just one of the reasons that led to the separation and ultimate divorce. After the separation in 2009, I was like a kid in a candy store. There I was, 40 years old, financially secure, still in good shape, a good head of hair, not anymore, reasonably attractive, and available. Between 2009 and 2019, I had 3 serious long-term relationships and a half a dozen casual short-term relationships. All 3 serious relationships were with younger women. The casual relationships were a mix of same age, slightly younger, and much younger. As I write this book, I am currently in a new relationship that I plan and hope will last the rest of my life. At the risk of sounding like a braggart, which is not my intention at all, I feel it's important to point out an interesting fact regarding the long-term relationships I've been in. After I make the point, I'll go into greater detail as to why I've made it. At the age of 22, I married a woman 8 years older than me, which at the time was very exciting. At the age of 40, when I separated, the first long-term relationship, which lasted about a year, was with a woman 7 years younger than me. The second long-term relationship, which lasted about 4 years on and off, was with a woman 14 years younger than me. The third long-term relationship, which lasted almost 5 years, was with a woman 18 years younger than me. And now the relationship I am currently in is with a woman 22 years younger than me. As I've gotten older, the difference in age between my partners and me has increased. So, why is this point relevant? Well, as this is the first chapter of the book, I think it's important to establish credibility. As I said in the first paragraph, I'm not a doctor or psychiatrist or therapist of any kind, so you can't listen to me on the basis of knowledge that comes from study and academia. No, my knowledge comes straight out of my life experiences. Everything you will read, I have lived through. I've had a lot of success and a lot of failure in romantic relationships with women. I've also had a lot of success and a lot of failure with business, family, and other personal relationships that I will also reference in this book. During the pandemic, I started a business called Steve Martin University. Within SMU, there will be something I call the Attractive Man Society. It's currently under development. Procrastinator. Its purpose will be to help men develop good character, confidence, and commitment for the betterment of all their relationships. The goal is to help men become more attractive in every aspect of their lives. So, what makes me an authority on attractiveness? Well, to be frank, it's my track record. When I look at my own life objectively, when I stand back and look at it from the outside, it's obvious to me that there is clearly something attractive about me. Again, I'm not boasting here. If you were to look at a lineup of all the women that I've been with, from my marriage until now, my ex-wife, all the long terms, all the short terms, all the one-night stands, you'll see a long line of intelligent, talented, and beautiful women. As a young man, I was attracting older women. As an older man, I'm attracting younger women. For the longest time, I just went with it. I didn't question it for fear of spoiling it somehow. But now that I'm writing this book and have started a business that focuses on attractiveness, I've spent some serious time reflecting on exactly what it is about me that women find attractive. I've also had conversations with several of my past partners about what they found attractive about me. I've also spent a considerable amount of time thinking about the many lessons I've learned over the years through the many relationships I've had. Each woman has taught me something new about myself, about women, and about relationships in general. I have confidence that this new relationship will last the rest of my life because I'm approaching it very differently than all the others. Of course, there are no guarantees in life. But what I know for sure, as I've said many times to Shang Wei, my current partner, if the relationship ends, it will not be because of anything I've done or not done. It will not be my fault. It will be by her choosing. So to recap, I'm not a psychiatrist or therapist. I'm just a regular guy who has been very fortunate to have a lot of experience with women. My opinions are just that, my opinions. My opinions based on my experience. I hope that's all clear. Please enjoy the rest of the book. Now, I think, this has gone on, this has only been 8 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and read the next chapter. We're going to go ahead right into chapter 2, which is entitled Simple versus Easy. They are not the same thing. All right, here we go. Quite often, these two words are used interchangeably, and when they are, everybody seems to know what the speaker is talking about. But there are differences between these two words that I think is important to point out. According to dictionary.com, simple is defined as follows. Adjective. Easy to understand, deal with, or use. For example, a simple matter, simple tools. 2, not elaborate or artificial, plain, a simple style. 3, not complicated, a simple design. 4, not complex or compound, single. 5, free of deceit or guile, sincere, unconditional, a simple a frank, simple answer. That's the example. The above list represents only 5 of the 20-some definitions listed on the website. I chose some of these because they help me make my point as to what good relationships are, but there are a couple that I threw in there because they represent what good relationships ought to be. Definitions 1, 3, and 4 describe how good relationships are in that A, they're easy to understand. I mean, the components are easy to understand. The ingredients of good, healthy relationships are easy to understand. not the individuals involved in the relationships. No, people can often be quite complicated and difficult to understand. And B, they are not complicated or complex because the necessary parts required are few and straightforward. A good, healthy relationship is much like a mousetrap. A mousetrap is not complicated in its design and structure. It has 5 main parts: a hammer, which kills the mouse, a spring, which snaps the hammer down onto the mouse, a hold down bar, which holds the hammer in the cocked position, a catch, which holds the end of the hold down bar and releases it when the mouse jiggles the catch, and a platform to which everything else is attached. As you read or listen to the description, you can probably visualize a mousetrap in your mind. It's a simple machine with 5 simple parts. Good relationships, as you'll read in the upcoming paragraphs, are also simple in their component parts, and those parts work together in perfect harmony for maximum effectiveness. The other 2 definitions of simple, not elaborate or artificial, and free of deceit or guile, sincere, unconditional, are what relationships ought to be. Relationships don't have to have excessive detail, but they should be real and free of deceit. They should be sincere and unconditional. Unconditional. That's a tough one. So let's look at the definition of easy. Dictionary.com again defines easy as follows. Again, I've chosen the 5 of many that will best help me illustrate my point. Adjective: 1, not hard or difficult, requiring no great labor or effort. A book that is easy to read. 2, free from pain, discomfort, worry, or care. He led an easy life. 3, providing or conducive to ease or comfort, comfortable, an easy stance. 4, effortlessly clear and fluent, an easy style of writing. 5, readily comprehended or mastered, an easy language to learn. Okay, so you can go through the above list of definitions and say relationships are, and fill in the blank with the opposite of what you see from 1 to 5. Relationships typically are hard and difficult. Relationships do require great labor and effort. Relationships are usually not free from pain, discomfort, worry, or care. Relationships don't always make us comfortable. It is not always effortlessly clear what we should do, and relationships are not readily comprehended or mastered. But the good news is they can be. Relationships typically are not easy, but they can be. So as you can see, simple can mean not complicated and not complex, while easy can mean not difficult and effortlessly clear. I got to get rid of that word. I can't even say it. Effortlessly clear. They are not the same. I'll give you another example of what I mean. Like a mousetrap, pie crust is simple as far as its components are concerned. It's not a complicated list of ingredients. There's flour, butter, water, salt, and sugar. There are 5 things you need, and you likely already have them in your kitchen or easily can be purchased at your local grocery store. However, though the list of ingredients is not long, and the order in which they are combined is not complicated, good pie crust is not easy to make. Despite its simplicity, a lot of people still manage to screw it up somehow. I've eaten a lot of pie in my life, and no matter what the filling, the judgment of whether the pie is good or not always comes down to the crust. Some people make great pie crust, some people make shit pie crust. Some people only get it right sometimes by dumb luck, while others have it mastered and get it right all the time. Pie crust is simple, but it is not easy. I know what you're thinking. What the hell does any of that have to do with relationships? Well, I will tell you. I think what I just said about pie crust can also be said about relationships. Relationships are simple, but they are not easy. Relationships are simple in that to be successful, they really only need a handful of things: good communication, love, trust, fun, and growth. With 5 components, the fact remains relationships are simple in that they are not complicated by dozens of components. And when you look at the 5 things I listed, I think you can agree that if you've got those 5 things, then you've got a successful relationship. However, you know where I'm going with this, relationships are not easy because each of those individual components are difficult to master. They are difficult to maintain consistently without fail. Some of them are difficult for some people to achieve at all. The individual components themselves are not easy. Each one of the components is complex in its nature. Each one has so many different facets. That's why there are so many chapters in this book. Each component needs thorough investigation and explanation. Honesty isn't just telling the truth. It's so much more than that. And I will do my best to break it down as best I can. The same is true for each of the sections in this book. Let's go back to the pie analogy for a second. Imagine that you couldn't just go to the grocery store and purchase the 5 items, but instead you had to make them all from scratch. You have to plant the wheat, water it, harvest it, grind it, and then do whatever else has to be done to make it flour. You have to buy a cow, feed it, milk it, and churn that milk until you get butter. I'm not even going to bother with the other 3 ingredients because I'm already exhausted just thinking about the first 2. So if you had to generate or source all 5 of the ingredients for pie crust, it would be astronomically more difficult than simply going to the store to purchase them. And yet, even when we're able to just go out and purchase the items, the majority of us will still end up making bad pie crust. So how do you make good pie crust? Well, you have to make it over and over and over and over again. You have to keep making it until you get it right. And each time you make it, you have to analyze what you did. If it turned out well, you have to figure out what you did that made it work so you can replicate the process in the future. If it turned out poorly, same thing. Analyze to figure out what to avoid and do differently the next time. Each time you attempt the pie crust, you may have to tweak the recipe until you get it exactly the way you want it and are able to repeat the process consistently with the same degree of accuracy and yumminess. Now, if we get back to reality and relationships, you can look at that previous paragraph and interpret it a couple of ways. When you read that you have to make pie crust over and over and over again, you might think you have to go from one relationship to another, to another, to another until you get it right, which is essentially what I did, but not intentionally, and it's definitely not necessary. And if that is your reality and has been your past, so be it. Let's look at that. You have the opportunity to look back at all your relationships and take stock of what you did well and what you did poorly, what you were good at and what you were bad at, where you succeeded and where you failed. Now, a little side note here, and the side note is an actual side note that's written in the book as a side note. You'll see that if you ever buy the book and read it. If you still have contact with past partners and they are willing to talk to you, ask them the above questions. I promise you, they will be honest with you. But prepare yourself for brutal honesty that may shock you. You will want to defend yourself, but don't do that. Only go down this road if you are able to ask the questions, then just shut up and listen. If you are serious about making the necessary changes and improvements with yourself so you can finally have a thriving, successful relationship, you may have to eat some shit here. End of side note. Okay. Once you've taken stock of your past relationships and made a comprehensive list of all the good and all the bad, the rest is simple. It's not rocket science. Keep the good, get rid of the bad. Then figure out what's missing and then add them to your life and put those things into action. You can always improve on the good to make them great, then do those things more often. Maybe the bad things aren't all that bad, but just need some adjustments to make them good. But you most definitely need to approach this process with honesty and a willingness to change. Otherwise, what's the point? The other way to look at making pie crust over and over and over again, if you're in a relationship, is to consider every moment an opportunity to make pie crust. Every interaction and every interaction and event of every day is a pie crust making experience. Every little argument can be considered bad pie crust. So you should reflect on the situation. Okay, I'm going to do that one again. Every interaction and event of every day is a pie crust making experience. Every little argument can be considered bad pie crust. So you should reflect on the situation and ask yourself, or your partner if you dare, how things could have been done differently to make for a pleasant conversation rather than an argument. Every good interaction should also be broken down to see what you did well. Break it down on your own in your head or on paper, whatever works for you, or better yet, break it down in a conversation with your partner. This little couples exercise will not only help you discover what you did right, but the exercise in itself will be a way of building and strengthening your relationship. If you're a man in a relationship with a woman and you say to her sincerely, honey, am I correct in believing that the conversation we just had was a good and positive one? Now, whether she confirms that it was, or corrects you and points out that it wasn't, this is an amazing opportunity to make the relationship better. Let's say she agrees that the conversation was good and positive. Now you say, do you mind if we take a moment to break it down so I can understand just what I said and how I said it that made it good and positive for you? I just want to be able to do the same thing more often in the future. Now, don't be surprised when the first time you try this, that she looks at you as if your body has been taken over by aliens and wonders what the hell has happened to you. But I promise you, if you sincerely go on this fact-finding mission, not only will you be better equipped in the future, she will love you more just for wanting to improve yourself for the benefit of her and the relationship. However, if she disagrees with your assessment of the conversation and therefore corrects you and tells you it was bad and negative, you should respond as follows. Oh, I'm sorry. I certainly didn't mean for it to be bad or negative. You mind if we take a moment to break it down so I can understand just what I said and how I said it that made it bad and negative for you, so I can avoid doing that again in the future? Sincerity is key here. You have to work on how you're going to say that in such a way that's not going to sound like phony baloney bullshit. Okay? Back to the book. Again, don't be surprised if she looks at you like you're some kind of stranger in her home and then suddenly wants to have sex with you. In this moment, she may find you more attractive than she ever has before. I say that half jokingly, but it's kind of true. That question shows your desire to be a better man, which will make you a better partner for her. Your willingness to invest real time in an emotional way on improving the relationship tells her quite clearly how much you love her. And yes, it's sometimes those sorts of things that arouse her sexually. Now, if only acquiring the basic ingredients of a successful relationship was as easy as going to the store to buy the ingredients for pie crust, well, guess what? It is that easy. You are holding in your hand or watching on YouTube or whatever right now, unless you're listening to the audiobook version of this, an instruction manual for successful relationships. There are bookstores online and on land that are crammed with books on every subject pertaining to relationships. There are books dedicated to each and every component of relationships: communication, sex, trust, honesty, self-improvement, etc., etc. And the list goes on and is virtually endless. So go get yourself the information you need and start studying. Don't just read these books, study them. Throughout this book, I will be quoting other authors. Go read their books and apply the lessons to your life. Also, talk to people. Learn to open up and talk about what you're going through. Share your struggles because you are not alone. Everyone has had difficulty in some sort of relationship at one time or another, and their experience may be able to help you. In fact, just speaking your troubles out loud may be enough to help you see the answer. Sometimes when we hear ourselves speak, we can hear how stupid we sound. And if you're deaf to your own stupidity, trust me, those around you are not. I think we can all agree that the 5 ingredients would make for a beautiful relationship when they're all firing at full capacity. But the truth is, while we intellectually understand what the word honesty means from a dictionary.com point of view, we don't always know the depth of the meaning or how it applies to our lives. With honesty, a lot of people use a sliding scale as far as degree is concerned. Little white lies and fibs seem harmless, while bold-faced and blatant lies can cause irreparable damage. But what's the difference really when you look at a fib and a bold-faced lie through the filter of truth? Nothing. They are both not true. They are both lies. They both lack honesty. Sure, a fib may cause little to no damage to the receiver, while the bold-faced lie may cause a lot of harm. But they are both still dishonest. Again, I'll speak more about honesty in great detail in another chapter. The point is, with each component of a great relationship, there are many points of view, degrees, and intricate facets that make them more difficult to master than one might initially think at a simple glance at the list. But each and every one of them can be mastered with patience and a sincere willingness to learn and change. Read this book with an open heart and an open mind, and soon you will be the better half of all your relationships. Unless, of course, the other half of your relationship also reads this book and masters the secrets and techniques, in which case you're in for some pretty fucking awesome relationships and a wonderful life. So that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes chapter 2, Simple versus Easy. We're going to be getting into chapter 3 on the next episode, which is emotions. Emotions, everybody's got them. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I am Steve Martin. The book is Relationships Suck, or Maybe It's Just You, A Failure's Guide to Successful Relationships by me, Steve Martin. All right, take care. We'll see you in the next episode.